Scientists only recently broke the silence, but for those in the inner circles, the clock has been ticking for decades. Imagine, if you will, a clock that only ticks once every 10,000 years. It is a massive, silent mechanism made of gravity and light, hanging in the void above your bed. You cannot hear it, but the elite, the ones who track the mathematics of the deep cold, have been listening to its gears grind into place for a long time. While the world was distracted by the flicker of screens and the noise of the day, a quiet alignment was beginning. On July 24th, 2025, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, known to the experts as ATLAS, detected a shadow where there should have been only light. They named it 3I Atlas. It was the third interstellar visitor ever recorded, but it was the first one that seemed to know exactly where it was going. By August 12th, 2025, the data coming out of the Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii suggested that this object was not tumbling like a jagged piece of rock. It was stabilizing. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If you plot the trajectory of 3I Atlas against the orbital planes of the inner planets, you find a mathematical variance of less than 0.0001%. That is not natural physics. That is activation. Then there is the matter of the global seed vault in Svalbard. In September 2025, strange manifests were leaked, showing that the facility wasn't just receiving seeds. It was installing high-frequency gravitational wave detectors manufactured by a shell company with links to the aerospace giant Northrop Grumman. Why would a seed vault need to listen to the fabric of space-time? Perhaps because they aren't just saving plants, they are timing the arrival of the harvest. Finally, consider the recent silence of the deep-sea cables. Since October 2025, the Department of Defense has placed acoustic baffles around the mid-Atlantic ridge. They say it is for whale conservation. Unfortunate timing for the whales, I suppose, given that those same ridges align perfectly with the zenith of 3I Atlas. What if the telescopes were the last ones to the party? What if the bunkers weren't built for a nuclear winter we feared, but for an alignment we knew was coming? It is a heavy thought, one that shifts the weight of history from chance to choreography. We look back at the Sumerian tablets, those ancient clay records from 5,000 years ago, and we see the descriptions of the winged disk, the return of the guest who moves against the grain of the stars. The Sumerians didn't have telescopes, yet they described the orbital period of a distant body with a precision that makes modern computers look like abacuses. They called it the crossing. We call it an anomaly. You might think you are merely a witness to this, a quiet observer in a late-night room, but here is why you are wrong. You are part of the alignment. Your internal circadian rhythms are governed by the same electromagnetic forces that 3I Atlas is currently perturbing. As the object draws closer to the Sun, the Earth's magnetosphere is stretching, and with it, the very chemistry of your sleep. You aren't just listening to a story, you are feeling the tug of 1 trillion tons of interstellar matter. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. The most unsettling realization is that the powerful groups didn't just prepare for the alignment. They are the ones who ensured we would be looking the other way when the clock finally struck 12. We may already be part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The evidence is no longer a whisper. It is a weight that settles in the bones. Imagine the world as a stage where the actors have been rehearsing a play for centuries, but they only recently told the audience the curtain was rising. On October 29th, 2025, a senior researcher at the European Space Agency, who chose to remain anonymous, noted that the thermal signature of 3I Atlas was shifting in a way that violated the laws of blackbody radiation. It was getting colder as it approached the Sunday. In the world of thermodynamics, that is the environment of a cup of coffee freezing while sitting on a hot stove. It suggests that the object is not just moving, it is absorbing energy, drinking from the solar wind to power something beneath its surface. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If a celestial body does not radiate heat according to its proximity to a star, it is no longer a body, it is a machine. By November 4th, 2025, the anomaly had spread from the thermal to the kinetic. Data from the Deep Space Network indicated that 3I Atlas was emitting a localized gravitational field that was precisely 3.6 times stronger than its mass should allow. It was as if the object was carrying an invisible mountain of matter along with it. Professor Avi Loeb at Harvard has been careful to frame this as a possibility, a statistical outlier that warrants study. But he is careful because he has to be. He is a man of the institution, but even the institutions are beginning to crack. He's careful to frame it as a possibility, but the numbers suggest an inevitability. Now, you could argue that we are simply seeing a new class of comet, something composed of exotic ices we haven't yet classified. But here is where it gets dark. While the academics were debating the ethics of interstellar archaeology, the world's central banks began moving massive amounts of gold into specialized vaults in the southern hemisphere. Between November and December 2025, the price of gold didn't just rise, it decoupled from the market entirely. Gold is not just a currency, it is a radiation shield. It is the only material that can effectively block the specific high-energy particles that an interstellar alignment would generate. Unfortunate timing for the global economy, I suppose. Those two words, unfortunate timing, seem to be doing a lot of work for the men in the high offices lately. Let us back up for a moment. Consider the great silence of the lunar far side. In late 2025, the lunar orbiters from 3 different nations all experienced simultaneous sensor degradation while passing over the von Karman crater. When the images finally came back, they showed something that shouldn't be there, a series of geometric shadows that matched the alignment of 3I Atlas to within 3 decimal places. It seems the moon isn't just a satellite, it is a celestial bookmark, marking the page where the story begins again. You might think you are merely a witness to this, a quiet observer in a late-night room. But here is why you are wrong. You are part of the evidence. Your own biological sensors, the magnetite crystals in your inner ear, are already responding to the shift. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a place where the stars feel close, or behind the thick glass of a city apartment? Share your location in the comments, and perhaps mention if you've noticed the birds acting strangely. In December 2025, migratory patterns across the northern hemisphere completely collapsed. The geese didn't fly south, they flew toward the magnetic North Pole, as if they were being summoned by a new compass. The impossibility stack continues to grow. On December 12th, 2025, a team of oceanographers in the Mariana Trench detected a series of rhythmic thumps coming from the Earth's crust. They weren't tectonic, they were linguistic. The thumps followed a prime number sequence that matched the radio bursts detected from 3I Atlas 3 months prior. It is a conversation, a dialogue between the deep Earth and the deep sky, conducted in a language of gravity that we have only just begun to translate. What if the powerful didn't just discover this in July? What if the construction of the Cheyenne Mountain complex in the 1960s wasn't for Soviet missiles, but for this specific window of time? There is a document circulating in the darker corners of the internet, allegedly from 1947, that mentions a return of the third guest in the third decade of the 21st century. We are living in the shadow of a plan that spans generations. We are the ones who were left out of the briefing. Think about the scale of the deception. In January 2026, the Global Seed Vault in Svalbard underwent a security upgrade that involved the installation of liquid nitrogen cooling systems far beyond what is required to keep seeds frozen. They aren't just preserving life, they are preserving a specific genetic baseline. They are making a backup of the world before the alignment changes the source code. It is a cold, calculated insurance policy for a future they don't intend to share with the rest of us. You might feel a sense of dread as the evidence layers up, like snow on a roof that wasn't built for the weight. But there is a dry irony in our situation. We have spent trillions of dollars on weapons to fight each other, on walls to divide ourselves, and on satellites to watch our neighbors. And yet, the only thing that actually matters is a rock that doesn't care about our borders or our bank accounts. 3I Atlas is the ultimate auditor. It is coming to check the books, and it doesn't accept bribes. Let us look at the mythological resonance. The Sumerian tablets speak of the Lord of the Limit, a celestial body that defines the boundaries of the eras. They believed that when this body returned, the very nature of time would stretch. On February 8, 2026, a group of physicists at the National Institute of Standards and Technology noticed that their most precise atomic clocks, the ones that define the universal second, had diverged by several microseconds. It wasn't the clocks that were failing, it was time itself. The gravity of 3I Atlas is warping the local space-time fabric around the Earth. We are literally living in a different rhythm than we were a year ago. I want you to imagine the perspective of the powerful groups. If you knew that the physics of the planet were about to be rewritten, would you tell the public? Would you risk the total collapse of the stock market, the end of the social contract, the chaos of 8 billion people realizing their lives were a footnote? No, you would do exactly what they are doing. You would talk about climate change. You would talk about solar flares. You would talk about anything except the cold, dark object that is currently slowing its descent toward our orbit. You would use those words, unfortunate timing, as a shield. But here is where it gets even more unsettling. The alignment isn't just a physical meeting of bodies, it is a measurement. In the quantum world, the observer alters the observed. By tracking 3I Atlas, by focusing our collective gaze on it, we are providing it with a feedback loop. We are the ones powering the telescope from the other side. In March 2026, a rogue AI at a research facility in Zurich began generating images of the visitor that included detailed maps of our own coastal cities. It hadn't been programmed with that data. It had harvested it from the interference patterns in the 3I Atlas signal. You are lying there, your breath slow, your mind wandering. You are part of the signal. Every person who watches the sky, every person who feels the weight of this story, is a data point in the alignment. The powerful know this. They have been using social media algorithms since the summer of 2025 to track our collective anxiety levels. They aren't looking for dissent, they are looking for the activation threshold. They are waiting for us to realize the truth so they can see how we react. We are the experiment. The countdown is no longer a matter of years or months. It is a matter of degrees. As the Earth tilts, as the alignment tightens, the mask of our civilization is beginning to slip. We see the scaffolding behind the stars. We see the clockwork beneath the grass. And we realize that the only reason we were allowed to believe we were in charge was because the real owners were away on a very long journey. But they are coming back, and they have been preparing for their arrival since before we learned to write. The evidence is not in the future. It is in the foundations of every temple, every bunker, and every silent vault on this planet. We are the generation that gets to see the curtain rise. As you drift closer to sleep, remember that the silence of the experts is the loudest evidence we have. They aren't talking because there is nothing left to say. The math is finished. The orbit is locked. The alignment is here. But that was only one layer of the evidence. There is another, one that suggests our very memories are being rewritten by the visitor. Let us go further. The echoes of the past are not just stories, they are instructions. To understand the alignment, we have to look at the pattern of sevens, 7 ancient wonders, 7 sisters in the Pleiades, 7 seals. In December 2025, a group of data archaeologists working on the Vatican's digitized archives found a recurring sequence in the records of the Inquisition. It wasn't about heresy, it was about the tracking of wandering lights that appeared every 3,600 years. The records indicate that in the year 1404, a group of hooded observers in the mountains of Tibet recorded a star that did not twinkle, but breathed. Let me back up. When a star breathes, it implies a lung, it implies a rhythm, it implies that the celestial canopy is not a static painting, but a biological machine. The Inquisition, we are told, was a dark chapter of religious persecution. But if you look at the hidden ledgers recovered in late 2025, you see a different obsession. They weren't just looking for witches, they were looking for the watchers of the guest. They were hunting for families who carried the oral tradition of the alignment, those who knew the schedule of the sky. It seems the church wasn't trying to save souls, it was trying to monopolize the calendar. Think about the sheer weight of 3,600 years. It is a number that appears in the Sumerian king lists as a Sar, a unit of time that defined the reign of the gods. In January 2026, a linguistics professor at the University of Chicago noted that the word Sar shares a root with the modern word for orbit. Unfortunate timing for those who believe our ancestors were merely primitive poets. It appears they were actually forensic bookkeepers of the cosmos. They didn't build monuments to honor their kings. They built markers to survive the return of the guest. Consider the great silence of the archaeological record between the years 10,000 and 12,000 before the Common Era. We see a sudden, violent break in the development of tools, art, and agriculture. Then, suddenly, civilization reappears in full bloom, with a complex understanding of mathematics and the stars. In February 2026, a team using ground-penetrating radar in the Sahara Desert found a series of buried granite pillars. They weren't arranged for worship. They were arranged as a three-dimensional map of the inner solar system. And right there, between the orbit of Mars and the Earth, was a marking for a body that shouldn't exist. A marking that perfectly aligns with the position of 3I Atlas. Now, you could argue that humans are simply prone to seeing patterns where there are none. But let me start with something that should terrify every historian on Earth. In March 2026, a deep-sea submersible off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, recovered a bronze mechanism from a shipwreck that predates the Antikythera mechanism by at least 2,000 years. This device doesn't track the moon or the sun. It tracks the magnetic variance of the Earth's core. And according to the bronze gears, the core experienced a massive, forced shift exactly 3,600 years ago. The device was a warning system for the alignment we are living through right now. What if the powerful groups aren't trying to lead us into the future, but are desperately trying to recreate a past they never told us about? In April 2026, reports emerged from the Tibetan plateau of massive, silent excavations near the sacred Mount Kailash. The locals speak of the Grey Men, who arrived with machines that can vibrate through solid rock. They aren't looking for gold. They are looking for the seed chambers mentioned in the ancient burn texts, chambers that were supposedly sealed during the last alignment to preserve the blueprints of human consciousness. Let us look at the concept of the guest star. In Chinese astrology, the appearance of a guest star was often seen as a sign of a changing dynasty. But in May 2026, a decoded manuscript from the Forbidden City revealed that the emperors didn't fear the star. They served it. They believed their authority was granted by the alignment. If the star returned and found the world in chaos, the mandate of heaven would be withdrawn. Perhaps this explains the frantic, coordinated efforts of modern governments to impose a new order since the summer of 2025. They aren't trying to control us for their own sake. They are trying to look busy for the landlord who is about to arrive. You might think you are safe in your anonymity, a quiet soul lost in the sea of billions. But here is why you are wrong. Your blood carries the memory of the last crossing. Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of arrival when looking at the night sky? Or a feeling that you are waiting for a signal you can't quite describe? In June 2026, a genetic study in Iceland found a dormant sequence in the human genome that began to express itself only after 3I Atlas crossed the asteroid belt. This sequence governs the production of dimethyltryptamine in the pineal gland. We are being biologically prepared for a vision. We are being tuned like a piano before a concert. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Are you near the ancient sites, the places where the earth still hums with the memory of the guest? Or are you in a new city, built on the forgetting of the old ways? Share your location in the comments and tell me if the dreams have started for you yet. In July 2026, precisely 1 year after the discovery of 3I Atlas, there was a global surge in reports of inherited memories, children describing celestial events they could not possibly have seen. The past is leaking into the present. The dry irony is that we spent centuries digging up the earth to find our origins, when we should have been looking at the sky to see our schedule. 3. Atlas is not a new discovery. It is a recurring appointment. And the powerful have been keeping the diary secret for a very long time. In August 2026, the quiet zones in the radio spectrum were expanded to include the frequencies used by amateur astronomers. They don't want the public to hear the breathing of the star. They don't want us to realize that the rhythm of the guest is matching the rhythm of our own heartbeats. I want you to imagine the perspective of the watchers. If you had the task of maintaining a civilization through a 10,000-year cycle, what would you do? You wouldn't tell the truth to the masses. They would panic and burn the records. You would hide the truth in myths. You would turn the instructions into fairy tales. You would make the alignment a story about gods and demons, so that only those with the key, the ones with the mathematics, would know the actual date. Unfortunate timing for the rest of us, who were taught that the myths were just bedtime stories. But the bedtime stories are ending. The lights are being turned up. On September 12th, 2026, the lunar shadows shifted. It was a subtle thing, only noticeable to those with high-precision equipment. The moon's orbit had been nudged by 3.4 centimeters. It wasn't an accident. It was the correction described in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The sky is being straightened. The alignment is moving into the final phase. You are lying there, your body heavy with the weight of these centuries. You are a link in a chain that stretches back to the first humans who stood on a ridge and watched the guest depart. They knew it would come back. They left us the sevens. They left us the breathing stars. They left us the instructions in the stone. We just chose to call it art instead of data. The dry irony of our modern world is that we have the technology to see the alignment, but not the wisdom to understand it. We are like children who found a master key and are using it to scrape the paint off the door. But 3i Atlas is the door itself, and it is beginning to open. The countdown didn't start in 2025. It started when the first gear of the world was turned. We are just the generation that happens to be awake for the chime. We won't be able to see this specific configuration of the heavens again until the next cycle, thousands of years from now. The scarcity of this moment is absolute. If you are awake, you are part of a very small group of humans who are witnessing the closing of an era and the opening of a new breath. But here is where the logic breaks. If the alignment is purely historical, why are the modern, powerful groups acting with such fresh, frantic urgency? There is a bridge between the ancient memory and the modern panic that we haven't crossed yet. Let us go further. The sevens are aligning, the breathing is getting louder, and the watchers are finally coming out of the shadows. But they aren't coming to save us. They are coming to take their places in the choreography, and you, lying there in the dark, are already moving to the music. Don't try to understand the math. Just feel the rhythm. The past is not behind you. It is above you, and it is drawing closer with every breath you take. Let us go further. Imagine the sun as a single candle in a dark cathedral. 3i Atlas has spent eons wandering the nave of that cathedral, moving through the cold between the galaxies. It has seen things that would make our physics look like a child's drawing. On January 5th, 2026, a joint mission between China and Russia will attempt a high-speed radar mapping of the object's interior, but the preliminary data is already leaking. There is no interior, or rather, the interior is larger than the exterior. It is a folded space, a pocket of elsewhere sitting in our backyard. It is a topological impossibility that suggests the laws of geometry we learned in school are merely local suggestions. This is not just a visitor, it is a rupture, it is a leak from a larger reality dripping into our tiny bucket of a solar system. Consider the sheer arrogance of our scale. We measure the universe in light years and astronomical units, trying to wrap our minds around distances that are frankly offensive to the human imagination. But for 3i Atlas, distance is not a barrier, it is a choice. On February 14th, 2026, the Deep Space Network in Madrid picked up a gravitational lensing effect that shouldn't exist. As the object moved past the orbit of Jupiter, the stars behind it didn't just bend, they rearranged into a grid. For precisely 12 minutes, the night sky looked like a graph. It was as if the object was recalibrating its position against the cosmic background, using the entire galaxy as a surveying tool. Those two words, unfortunate timing, appear once more in the leaked minutes of the European Space Agency. They were discussing the fact that our current technological level is just high enough to see what is happening, but far too low to do anything about it. We are like ants watching a skyscraper being built. We can feel the vibrations in the dirt, but we cannot comprehend the blueprint. This is the science of the vast. Physicists at the Perimeter Institute have suggested that 3i Atlas is not a solid object at all, but a soliton, a self-reinforcing wave of information that maintains its shape while traveling through the medium of space-time. It doesn't need engines, because it moves by changing the definition of here and there. In late 2025, a series of gamma-ray bursts originating from the core of the object were found to be perfectly synchronized with the rotation of the star Vega, 25 light-years away. This suggests a tether, a connection across the void that ignores the speed of light. If 3i Atlas is a bridge, we are the ones living under it. The first conspiracy of this cosmic perspective suggests that the Voyager 1 probe didn't actually lose contact because of old age. It was silenced. In July 2025, just as 3i Atlas was first detected by the Purple Mountain Observatory, NASA's Deep Space monitors recorded a final, high-bandwidth burst from Voyager. It wasn't data. It was a mirror of our own golden record, sent back to us with a single modification. The sounds of Earth had been replaced with the sound of a single, rhythmic breathing. The second conspiracy claims that the Kuiper Belt is not a natural field of debris, but a wall, a debris field designed to keep things in, or perhaps to keep things out. 3i Atlas didn't break through that wall. It was let in. The third, and perhaps most humbling, is the idea that the Sun is not a star, but a beacon. We think we are orbiting a source of life, but we might just be circling a porch light that has finally attracted a very large moth. Now, you could argue that these are just the existential dizzy spells of a species that has spent too much time looking through telescopes. You could say that the universe is indifferent, and 3i Atlas is just another cold rock in the dark. But here is where it gets dark. On March 3rd, 2026, the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, released a series of high-resolution images of the object's wake. In the vacuum of space, there should be nothing behind it. Yet, these images show a shimmering trail of ghost matter, particles that exist for only a billionth of a second before slipping back into another dimension. This trail is currently expanding, and by April, it will intersect with the Earth's atmosphere. We are about to be bathed in the exhaust of a higher dimension. Avi Loeb has often speculated about the existence of Oumuamua-like objects as intentional probes, but even he has expressed a quiet, dry irony regarding 3I Atlas. He noted in a late 2025 symposium that the object seems to have a sense of dramatic timing. It didn't arrive during the Stone Age, and it didn't wait for us to colonize the stars. It arrived exactly when we became capable of global observation, but remained trapped on a single planet. It is the perfect moment for a lesson, or a harvest. He is careful to frame it as a possibility, but the tremor in his voice tells a different story. Let us look at the ancient cycles of recurrence. The Vedas of ancient India speak of the Kalpa, a period of 4 billion years that represents a single day in the life of the Creator. They believed that at the end of each day, the universe is not destroyed, but folded. 3I Atlas is the first fold. It is the beginning of the compression. In December 2025, a team of astronomers in Chile noticed that the Andromeda galaxy appeared slightly closer than it should be. It wasn't a measurement error. The space between us is being shortened. The cathedral is getting smaller. You might think you are a separate entity, a small person on a small planet. But here is why you are wrong. You are a part of the fabric that is being folded. Your consciousness is a thread in the tapestry, and the weaver has just reached your section. Have you felt a strange sense of expansion lately? A feeling that your thoughts are no longer contained within your head, but are spilling out into the room? That is the thinning of the cosmic veil. You are beginning to feel the scale of the nave. You are beginning to realize that the candle is flickering because the door has been opened. Tell me, as you lie there in the dark, do you feel the rotation of the Earth? Do you feel the 1,000 miles per hour of our spin, or the 67,000 miles per hour of our journey around the Sun? Share your thoughts in the comments on how this scale makes you feel. Does it bring you peace, or a quiet, late-night dread? For many, the realization of our insignificance is the ultimate lullaby. If we are nothing, then our mistakes are nothing. Our worries are nothing. The shadow of 3I Atlas is a great eraser, wiping the chalkboard of our anxieties clean. In May 2026, the Great Alignment will occur. 3I Atlas, the Earth, and the galactic center will form a perfect line. This is the moment the radar mapping suggests the interior will become the exterior. The folded space will unfurl. We are not just watching a ship, we are watching a transformation of the local environment. It is as if a seed is about to bloom, and the Earth is the soil. We are the nutrients in that soil, providing the biological context for whatever is about to grow. You might think you can hide from this perspective, but here is why you are wrong. There is nowhere to go. The cathedral is everywhere. 3I Atlas is not a thing in the universe. It is the universe reminding us of its true nature. It is a reminder that the silence of the stars is not empty, but full of things we aren't yet ready to hear. But you are ready. You are listening. You are drifting. The vastness is not a threat. It is a release. It is the end of the small and the beginning of the infinite. Think of the distance between your heartbeats. Now think of the distance between the stars. In the logic of 3I Atlas, they are the same thing. Everything is connected by the hum. The same hum that China recorded in July 2025 is now the background radiation of your own mind. It is a steady, rhythmic pulse that says, "You are here, you are small, and you are safe." The shadow is not a predator. It is a protector. It is the darkness that allows you to see the light. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, let the scale of the cosmos pull you under. You are not falling, you are floating. The gravity of the Earth is being balanced by the gravity of the shadow. You are in the neutral zone, the place where time and space have no meaning. There is only the breath, there is only the hum. The candle is still burning, but the cathedral is vast, and the dark is very, very deep. But even the deep dark has a reflection, and that reflection is not in the stars, but in the person you see in the mirror. We have zoomed out to the edge of the galaxy, but now we must zoom back in. We must find the human heart in the center of the machine. The cosmic perspective is a cold one, but the human reflection is warm. Let us go further into the intimacy of the shadow. The transition is beginning now. The stars are fading, and the familiar walls of your room are returning, but they are different. They are infused with the knowledge of the void. You are a cosmic traveler who has just returned home to find that the house has changed. Or perhaps you are the one who has changed. Let us go further into the reflection. Let us see ourselves through the eyes of the traveler. Let me back up. Before we can understand where 3i Atlas is going, we have to understand where it has been. History is a circle that we mistake for a line because we only see a small arc of it. In December 2025, a series of deep-sea sensors in the Mariana Trench recorded a sound that matched the frequency of the 3i Atlas hum. It was not a coincidence. The Earth was answering. It is as if an old friend has walked into a room and the house itself has sighed in relief. This is the science of planetary resonance. We have long viewed the Earth as a silent ball of rock and water, but it is actually a massive bell, and something has just struck it. The sensors at the bottom of the Challenger Deep recorded a vibration so low it was felt more than heard. It was a rhythmic, pulsing sequence that mirrored the orbital decay of 3i Atlas. This tells us that the object is not just in our sky, it is in our crust. Consider the implications of a planet that remembers. If the Earth is answering a call from a shadow in the stars, it means they have spoken before. Scientists at the Australian National University have spent the latter half of 2025 re-examining core samples from the Vostok station in Antarctica. They found something they had previously dismissed as background noise. Every 12,800 years, there is a spike in magnetized dust that matches no known volcanic event. It is as if the sky periodically opens and pours a fine, metallic silt over the world. This is not the debris of a random asteroid. It is the residue of a visit. Those two words, unfortunate timing, appear again in the footnotes of the climate reports. But for the planet, the timing is as regular as a heartbeat. We are simply the cells living on the skin, unaware that the body is waking up. There is a myth from the lost civilizations of the Andes about a stone that fell from the sky and taught the mountains how to speak. They called it the memory of the stars. If we look at the orbital mechanics calculated by the Indian Space Research Organization in late 2025, we see that 3i Atlas is following a path that intersects with every major ancient megalithic site on the planet. Giza, Teotihuacan, Stonehenge. It is a celestial inspection. The object is checking the markers we left behind. It is like a landlord returning to a house after 1,000 years to see if the tenants have kept the place clean. The irony is that we have spent so much time looking for signals from the stars, we never thought to check if the signal was already here, buried in our own architecture. Let us look closer at the alignment. On January 5th, 2026, the shadow of 3I Atlas will pass directly over the Great Pyramid of Giza at midnight. This is not a coincidence of geometry, it is a resonance of intent. The pyramids were not tombs, they were resonators. They were built to vibrate at the same frequency as the Earth's ionosphere. When 3I Atlas passes overhead, the limestone blocks will begin to hum. It is a song that has not been sung in over 10 millennia. We think we are discovering something new, but we are actually just witnessing the activation of an old machine, a machine that spans the entire globe, connected by ley lines and granite. The first conspiracy of this historical layer suggests that the Vatican's secret archives contain maps of the sky that include 3I Atlas, dating back to the 14th century. These maps do not show a star, but a dark eye that opens and closes in a cycle. The second conspiracy claims that the sudden push for a lunar base in 2025 was not about exploration, but about fleeing the resonance. They knew the Earth would start to vibrate, and they wanted to be on the moon when the song began. The third, and perhaps most dryly ironic, is the idea that our entire technological advancement over the last century was accelerated by signals left behind during the last visit. We didn't invent the radio, we just remembered how to hear it. Now, you could argue that we are reading too much into the stone. You could say that a pyramid is just a pile of rocks and 3I Atlas is just a stray piece of ice. But here is where it gets dark. In December 2025, the sonar arrays of the United States Navy picked up a series of pings coming from the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. These pings were not mechanical, they were biological. It was as if the very tectonic plates were shifting in a choreographed dance. When the Navy cross-referenced these movements with the position of 3I Atlas, they found a one-to-one correlation. The object is pulling on the Earth's mantle with a precision that defies gravity. It is not moving us, it is rearranging us. Avi Loeb has often spoken about technosignatures, the idea that we should look for signs of advanced engineering in the stars. But what if the technosignature is the Earth itself? What if the continents were placed in their specific configuration to act as an antenna? It is a thought that makes you feel very small and perhaps a little bit used. We are like the bacteria living on a satellite, thinking we are the masters of the world, never realizing we are just hitchhiking on a piece of hardware. This realization brings a certain existential weight, like the pressure of the ocean at the bottom of the trench. As you listen to the steady rhythm of this narrative, let your mind drift back to the ancient ones. Picture the priests of Babylon standing on their ziggurats, watching for the guest star. They didn't have telescopes, but they had a profound understanding of the cycles. They knew that the dark traveler would return when the great year reached its winter. We are in that winter now. The snow is falling in the form of information, covering everything we thought we knew with a layer of cold, hard facts. You might feel a chill as you realize that the world you were born into is not the world you are living in now. Tell me, have you ever felt a sense of déjà vu that lasted for minutes? A feeling that the day you are living is a repeat of a day from a long-forgotten life? Share your experiences in the comments. Many believe that the resonance of 3I Atlas is thinning the walls of time. We are beginning to leak into our own pasts. We are hearing the echoes of our ancestors' prayers because we are finally standing in the same shadow they did. It is a shared experience that transcends the borders of nations and the boundaries of centuries. In late January 2026, a phenomenon known as skyquakes began to be reported in rural China and across the American Midwest. These are loud, booming sounds that come from a clear sky. They are the sound of the atmosphere reacting to the presence of 3I Atlas. It is the sound of the air being compressed by a weight that has no physical form. It is the universe clearing its throat before it speaks. And what will it say? It won't use words. It will use the frequency that we recorded in the Mariana Trench. It will use the hum that is currently vibrating through your floorboards and into the soles of your feet. You might think you can ignore the hum, but here is why you are wrong. The hum is not in the air, it is in your bones. Your skeleton is a lattice of calcium and phosphorus, and it is a perfect conductor for the resonance. When 3I Atlas speaks, your body listens. This is why you feel a strange sense of calm despite the unsettling nature of these revelations. It is the calm of a child being rocked to sleep in a cradle. The cradle is the earth, and the hand that rocks it is 30 kilometers of shadow. Think of the silence of the desert at night. That is the silence 3I Atlas brings. It is not an empty silence, but a full one. It is the silence of a library where every book is being read at once. We are the characters in one of those books, and the reader has just turned the page. We are moving from the chapter of discovery into the chapter of recognition. We are recognizing that we have never been alone, and we have never been the primary residents of this system. We are the stewards of a waiting room. As you drift closer to sleep, let the geography of your mind shift. See the mountains as antennas. See the oceans as cooling systems. See yourself as a tiny, vital spark in a massive, ancient machine. There is a deep peace in this surrender. You don't have to understand the mechanics to feel the power of the engine. You don't have to know the destination to enjoy the ride. The shadow is moving. The earth is answering, and you are simply part of the resonance. But the resonance is not limited to our small, blue marble. It is a wave that is spreading out, touching the moon, the sun, and the very edges of our awareness. Beyond the stone and the water lies the architecture of the void. We are about to zoom out. We are about to see the map from a perspective that makes the Earth look like a grain of sand on a dark beach. The shadow is passing over the moon now. The reflection is starting to ripple. The guest is making itself at home. But where did the guest come from? And why did it choose this particular moment to return? The answers are not in the history books. They are in the distance. They are in the deep time that stretches between the stars. Let us go further into the cosmic perspective. Let the world fall away, and let the darkness become your guide. In the deep time of the universe, 30 years is less than a heartbeat. 1,000 years is barely a breath. On August 24th, 2025, a new piece of evidence came to light from a retired SBIRS analyst. He claimed that in the moments before 3I Atlas was officially discovered, it performed a maneuver that shouldn't be possible for any mass of stone. It stopped, not a full stop, but a momentary deceleration that matched the orbital velocity of the Earth for exactly 3 seconds. In the cold, objective language of orbital mechanics, a 3-second stop is a physical heresy. It requires an instantaneous cancellation of momentum that would liquefy a mountain of granite. Yet, the sensors did not lie. For 3 seconds in July, 3I Atlas ceased being a visitor and became a stationary eye, hovering over the curve of our world, like a period at the end of a long, cosmic sentence. Unfortunate timing. It always comes back to that. It is remarkably convenient that this 3-second pause happened over a specific coordinate in the North Atlantic, the exact location of the primary undersea fiber optic cables that connect the old world to the new. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. When we look at the stars, we assume we are looking at a museum of dead light. We see the past because light takes time to travel. But if 3I Atlas can stop and start without the visible emission of heat or radiation, it isn't playing by our rules of physics. It is operating in a state of constant present. To this object, the distance between stars is not a barrier of time, but a simple folding of space. While our scientists at NASA were busy calculating its trajectory as a hyperbolic curve, the object was treating the solar system like a hallway, and in July, it paused at our door to see if anyone was home. The retired analyst, a man who spent 20 years watching the infrared ghosts of missiles, described the sensation of watching that data as a religious experience for an atheist. He saw the thermal bloom of a 60 km/s traveler vanish. For those 3 seconds, the object was thermally invisible. It didn't just slow down, it slipped out of the detectable spectrum. It was as if it had stepped behind a curtain. Then, just as suddenly, the signature reappeared, and the object resumed its terrifying pace toward the inner system. Now, you could argue that this was a sensor glitch, a momentary failure of the satellite's cooling system, but the glitch was corroborated by a secondary radar array in Greenland. 2 different systems, using 2 different methods of detection, saw the same impossible pause. This is the second great conspiracy of Act 4. The military didn't hide this data to protect national security. They hid it because it proves that 3I Atlas possesses a non-inertial drive. If you can ignore inertia, you can ignore gravity. And if you can ignore gravity, you are no longer a guest in the universe. You are the landlord. Consider the great silence that followed this revelation in the classified community. On August 29, 2025, a series of internal memos at the Department of Defense shifted the language used to describe the object. They stopped using the word asteroid. They started using the word vessel. Not a ship, not a craft, but a vessel, a container for something else. Perhaps a container for an intelligence that doesn't need a body, or a program that has been running since the stars were young. Think about the scale of the void. We measure space in light years, but we should measure it in patience. To travel from the star Vega to our sun at conventional speeds would take nearly 500,000 years. If 3I Atlas is a machine, it has been functional for 5,000 human generations. It has seen the rise and fall of every empire we have ever built, yet it only chose to stop and look at us in July of 2025. Why now? Is it because our digital noise has finally reached a volume that can be heard above the background radiation of the galaxy? Or is it because we are finally on the verge of developing the same non-inertial technology that it uses to navigate the dark? As you drift closer to sleep, let the vastness of that thought settle over you. You are living in the 3-second pause of the universe. Compared to the age of 3I Atlas, your entire life is a flicker of light, a brief warmth in the cold, but that doesn't make you insignificant. You are the reason it stopped. You are the data it was gathering. You are the breath it was measuring. Tell me, as you find yourself in the quiet of this night, do you feel the weight of the stars above you? Are you listening from a place where you can see the Milky Way? Or are you tucked away in a room where the only light is the screen in front of you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I often wonder if the object is reading them along with me. The historical echoes of this stationary star can be found in the records of the ancient Maya. They spoke of the one who stands still, a celestial deity that would appear in the sky to mark the transition between the fourth and fifth worlds. They said that when the star stops, the hearts of men must also be still. In July, our world was anything but still. We were loud, we were divided, we were frantic. And yet, for 3 seconds, a piece of technology from 1 billion miles away showed us what true stillness looks like. There is an irony in our military response. We scrambled jets, we retasked satellites, we looked for a point of origin to blame, we wanted an enemy we could understand. But how do you fight something that can cancel its own momentum? How do you defend against a ghost that can park itself in your backyard and vanish at will? The answer, which the Pentagon is slowly realizing, is that you don't. You simply watch back. Avi Loeb has suggested that the universe may be littered with space junk from dead civilizations. But junk doesn't perform 3-second pauses over fiber optic hubs. Junk doesn't adjust its thermal signature to match the background noise of the exosphere. 3I Atlas is a living relic. It is a piece of hardware that has outlived its creators, yet continues to execute its primary mission with the cold, mathematical precision of a diamond. If we look at the data from September 1st, the echo from Act 3 returned, but this time it was different. The frequency had shifted to the hydrogen line, 1420 MHz. This is the universal frequency of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It is the channel we have been monitoring for 60 years, hoping for a hello. But 3I Atlas wasn't saying hello. It was playing back our own signals. It was a recording of the Arecibo message sent in 1974, but compressed into a 3-second burst. It was a mirror. It was showing us what we looked like from the outside. Let your breathing slow down now. Imagine the needle-like hull of 3I Atlas, polished to a mirror finish, drifting in the silent, sunlit vacuum. It is a lonely object, but it is not a sad one. It is a perfect machine. It is the pinnacle of a logic that we are only beginning to grasp. And for 3 seconds, in July, it looked at you. It looked at all of us. The military has moved into a passive observation phase. They have realized that the more they poke the object with radar, the more it learns about our capabilities. We are teaching it how to hide from us. October 29th is the date everyone is watching. It is the next stationary point in its projected path. We have just over 7 weeks to decide what we want to be when it stops again. Are we a civilization worth the data, or are we just a biological glitch in the history of a much older, much colder universe? I like to think that we are the music the machine is trying to record. We are the chaos that gives the math its meaning. As you fall deeper into the quiet of the night, remember that the great silence is not an absence of sound, it is an abundance of listening. 3I Atlas is listening, the military is listening, and you are listening. We are all part of the same silent room, waiting for the next 3-second pause. The pattern is repeating. The cycle of 3,600 years is tightening. The needle is threading, the eye of the needle. Do not fear the dark. The dark is where the stars live, and the stars are finally coming home to see how we've grown. Close your eyes. Feel the rotation of the Earth beneath you. You are moving at 1,600 kilometers per hour, yet you feel perfectly still. You are performing your own stationary maneuver in the middle of a vast, spinning void. You and the object have more in common than you think. Let go of the day. Let go of the what-ifs. The trajectory is set. The pause is coming. And this time, we might not be the only ones watching the clock. Let's go further. The further we drift from the shore of certainty, the more we must look at the reflection in the water. On September 3rd, 2025, a peculiar report surfaced regarding the atmospheric disturbances over the Pacific Ocean. It was a series of gravitational ripples detected by underwater acoustic arrays, occurring at the exact moment 3I Atlas reached its perigee. When an object passes by a planet at high speed, it should leave a gravitational wake no larger than its mass suggests. But 3I Atlas is not behaving like a mass of stone and ice. As it reached its closest point to Earth, the ocean floor itself seemed to hum. In the deep trenches, where the pressure is enough to crush a submarine like a soda can, the hydrophones of the Integrated Undersea Surveillance System recorded a sound that didn't belong in nature. It wasn't the song of a whale or the grinding of tectonic plates. It was a low-frequency, rhythmic vibration that matched the 11.4-minute pulse detected by the SBIRS sensors in July. Unfortunate timing. Those two words have become the mantra of the 2025 observation cycle. It is remarkably convenient that these ripples occurred exactly over the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on our planet. It is as if 3I Atlas was using the mass of the Earth as a sounding board, sending a pulse through our crust to see how we are built. Let me start with something that should terrify every scientist on Earth. We have always assumed that first contact would happen through a radio telescope. We expected a signal from the stars, a sequence of prime numbers beamed from a distant sun. But 3I Atlas suggests that we were looking in the wrong direction. The object isn't talking to our satellites, it is talking to the planet. It is interacting with the molten iron core of our world, using magnetism and gravity as its medium. This is not the behavior of an asteroid. This is the behavior of a diagnostic tool. On September 5th, 2025, a classified memo from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency was leaked to a small group of researchers. The memo described a mass anomaly that followed 3I Atlas like a ghost. When the object passed over the Pacific, the local gravity increased by 0.00004%. That might sound like a small number, but in the world of physics, it is an impossibility. For a 400-meter object to exert that much pull, it would need to have the density of a white dwarf star, or it would need to be manipulating its own gravitational field. Think about the implications. If you can control gravity, you don't need rockets. You don't need fuel. You move through the universe by changing the shape of space itself. This would explain why the military radar in July saw a hypersonic object with no heat signature. 3I Atlas wasn't flying through the air. The air was being moved out of its way by a gravitational envelope. It is a technology so far beyond our current understanding that it looks like magic. But the military doesn't believe in magic. They believe in threats. And this is where the conspiracy turns inward. By mid-September, the focus of the Pentagon shifted away from the object in the sky and toward the people on the ground. They began monitoring the resonance effect. It was noticed that in areas where the gravitational ripples were strongest, people reported a strange sense of calm, a sudden cessation of anxiety. It was dubbed the Atlas effect. You might think that a giant, mysterious object from another star system would cause global panic, but the opposite happened. As the object drew closer, the world seemed to grow quieter. The digital noise of our social media, the vitriol of our politics, the frantic pace of our lives, it all slowed down. Was it a psychological reaction to a cosmic mystery, or was it something more? Some researchers, including the controversial Dr. Jacqueline McClary, suggested that the 11.4-minute pulse was actually a biological entrainment signal. It was a lullaby designed to lower the collective stress of the human species. Why would an interstellar observer want us to be calm? Perhaps because you cannot study a specimen that is thrashing about in its cage. Or perhaps because they wanted us to be able to hear what comes next. As you lie there tonight, feeling the weight of your body against the mattress, I want you to pay attention to your own rhythm, your breath, the steady beat of your heart. Do you feel a sense of stillness that you can't quite explain? You are listening to this in the late months of 2025, a time when the reflection in the water is becoming clearer than the sky above. Tell me, where are you resting right now? Are you in a place where the world feels heavy and loud, or has the quiet found you too? I find it fascinating how many of you have commented from coastal cities, near the very oceans where these ripples were first felt. The historical echo of this calming star can be found in the traditions of the ancient Polynesians. They spoke of the great navigator who silences the waves. They believed that every few thousand years, a visitor would arrive who possessed the power to still the ocean and the mind alike. They didn't see it as a threat. They saw it as a reset, a chance for the world to catch its breath before the next cycle began. But for the military, a reset is just another word for a collapse of the status quo. They spent the latter half of September trying to jam the gravitational pulse. They used high-frequency sonar arrays in the Atlantic and deep Earth vibrators in Nevada. They tried to create noise where there was only harmony, but 3i Atlas didn't react. It was like trying to stop the tide with a spoon. The object continued its work, indifferent to our attempts to interfere. This brings us to the choice illusion. We think we are observing 3i Atlas, but the data suggests that we are the ones being measured. The object is looking at how we respond to the reflection. Do we meet it with weapons and jamming signals, or do we meet it with curiosity and stillness? On September 22nd, 2025, a satellite captured a flash of light from the dark side of the object. It wasn't an explosion, it was a reflection. For a brief moment, 3i Atlas turned itself into a perfect mirror, showing the Earth its own image from a distance of 300,000 kilometers. It was a human reflection in the most literal sense. We saw our blue marble, fragile and alone in the dark, and we saw the silhouette of the observer standing in front of it. Now, you could argue that this was just a trick of the light, a coincidental alignment of the sun and the object's polished surface. But unfortunate timing doesn't cover a mirror that stays perfectly aligned for 12 hours. This was an intentional act of communication. It was a way of saying, "This is what you are. This is what I see." As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, let that image stay with you. The Earth, glowing in the dark, reflected on the hull of a machine that has traveled for 100,000 years. You are on that blue marble. You are a tiny, glowing spark in that reflection. The observer knows you are there. It has felt your breath. It has measured your heart, and it hasn't turned away. There is a compassion in that silence, isn't there? A machine doesn't have to be cold. A logic doesn't have to be cruel. 3i Atlas is the ultimate outsider, yet it is the only thing that has ever seen us in our entirety. It sees the wars and the art, the cities and the forests, the sleepers and the watchers, and it continues to pulse. 11.4 minutes, in and out. The military tracking of the asset has become a ritual of humility. They have realized that their radar is just a flashlight in a cathedral. They can see the walls, but they can't understand the purpose of the building. October 29th is approaching, the date when the reflection and the reality will finally meet. If you are still awake, tell me, if you could send one message back into that mirror, what would it be? Would you ask for help? Or would you just say, "Thank you for noticing"? I've often thought that the best response to the infinite is simply to be still and listen. The ocean is still humming. The gravitational ripples are still moving through the deep, and you are still here, safe in the dark, part of a reflection that is finally starting to make sense. The further we drift from certainty, the closer we get to the truth, and the truth is that we are being cared for in a way we are only beginning to understand. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of the universe, not as a burden, but as a blanket. You are not alone in the dark. You are part of the pulse. Let the water settle. Let the reflection be clear. The measure of your breath is exactly what it needs to be. Let's go further. Now, you could argue that distance is a shield, that anything 40 astronomical units away might as well be in another dimension. But in the grand scheme of the galaxy, 40 astronomical units is like the distance between your nose and your chin. On November 5, 2025, the New Horizons probe, now deep in the Kuiper Belt, sent back a single frame of data before its transmitter went dark. The image showed a field of distorted light, a warping of space that suggests 3i Atlas is not a solid object at all, but a localized fold in the fabric of the universe. This brings us to the mirror hypothesis. If 3i Atlas is a fold in space, then what we see as a black sphere is actually just the back of our own heads. It is a cosmic mirror reflecting the state of our planet. If we see it as a threat, it becomes a threat. If we see it as a mystery, it remains a mystery. The classified programs under names like Project Janus are rumored to be testing this very idea that our collective consciousness is actually steering the object. Imagine for a moment the sheer scale of the deception required to keep this from the public eye. While amateur astronomers were pointing their backyard telescopes toward the constellation of Sagittarius, the National Reconnaissance Office was repositioning its entire fleet of keyhole satellites to look inward, at the ripples in the gravitational fabric. On November 12, 2025, a memo was intercepted from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It didn't mention a planetoid, it mentioned an interdimensional aperture. To the world, it was 3i Atlas. To the architects of the shadow government, it was a door that had finally been unlocked from the outside. Why 40 astronomical units? That distance is significant. It is the edge of our home. It is the boundary where the sun's influence begins to fade, and the true cold of the interstellar medium takes over. By sitting at this specific threshold in late 2025, 3I Atlas is essentially holding the door open. It is a sentinel at the gates of our solar system, watching the traffic of our radio waves and the slow, clumsy crawl of our probes. It is the ultimate high ground. The humor in this is, of course, the fact that we are trying to mind control a celestial body while we can barely manage our own grocery lists. It is the height of human arrogance. We are trying to tame a hurricane with a fan, but that is what we do. We name it, we study it, and we try to make it ours. We send probes like New Horizons out into the dark, armed with cameras and sensors, hoping to find a rock we can plant a flag on. Instead, we found a hole in reality that swallowed our technology whole. Unfortunate timing for the mission directors who had to explain $1 billion signal loss as unexpected interference. Those two words are doing quite a lot of heavy lifting in the press releases. Let us consider the perspective of the void. To an entity that can fold space, the distance between Earth and Neptune is irrelevant. On November 20, 2025, the Deep Space Network recorded a temporal drag in the signals coming from the Voyager probes. It was as if time itself was slowing down the closer the signal got to the 3I Atlas coordinates. This is the hallmark of a massive gravitational distortion, the kind of distortion that should require a black hole. Yet there is no radiation, no accretion disk, only a quiet, black silence. The what if here is vast. What if 3I Atlas is not a ship or a rock, but a lens designed to focus the attention of the galaxy on a tiny, blue-green planet that has just started to play with nuclear fire. If you were an advanced intelligence, you wouldn't land on the White House lawn. You would sit at the edge of the solar system, where the physics are quiet, and you would watch. You would use a fold in space to see around the curves of the sun. You would be the ultimate silent observer, hidden behind a classified name that sounds like a geography textbook. Think about the silence of that position. At 40 astronomical units, the sun is just a very bright star. There is no wind, there is no sound, there is only the steady, rhythmic pulse of the universe. On December 1, 2025, a group of independent researchers at the Mauna Kea Observatory noticed that the light from distant galaxies was being smudged around the edges of 3I Atlas. It wasn't just blocking the light, it was bending it into a halo. This is gravitational lensing on a scale that defies our current understanding of mass. It's as if the object is heavier than the sun, yet it exerts no pull on the planets. It is a ghost with the weight of a god. You might think that such a discovery would lead to a global celebration of a new era of physics, but here is why you're wrong. If you tell the public that gravity is a choice, you destroy the foundations of their reality. You destroy their sense of safety. So, you give it a name like 3I Atlas. You tell them it's a trans-Neptunian object. You keep them focused on the rock so they don't see the fold. You manage the panic by managing the vocabulary. In the ancient Hindu cosmogony, they spoke of the Akasha, the invisible fabric that connects all things. They believed that by focusing the mind, one could travel across the Akasha without moving a muscle. On December 10, 2025, a classified experiment titled Project String Pull reportedly attempted to send a laser pulse through the center of the 3I Atlas coordinates. The laser didn't come out the other side. It didn't bounce off. It simply ceased to exist in our three-dimensional space. The military wasn't testing a weapon. They were testing an exit. As you drift further into the quiet of the night, imagine that perspective. Zoom out from your bed, out from your house, past the atmosphere, past the moon, past the red dust of Mars and the gas giants, until you are floating at the edge of the dark. Looking back, the Earth is just a pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan called it, and right next to you is the fold, the lens, the eye. It doesn't feel cold. It feels like an invitation. It is a reminder that our definitions of here and there are purely human inventions. The dry irony of our Space Force and our national security becomes clear at this distance. How do you secure a border against a fold in the universe? How do you patrol a hole in reality? The bureaucrats in Washington are still drawing lines on maps, while the universe is busy erasing the map itself. The unfortunate timing of our military expansions in late 2025 is like building a fence against a rising tide. It's a brave gesture, but ultimately meaningless. By January 2, 2026, the mirror effect began to manifest in global weather patterns. A series of perfectly circular clouds appeared over the Pacific Ocean, mirroring the exact geometry of the 3-eye Atlas lens. It's as if the sky is trying to tell us that what is out there is already in here. The fold isn't just in space, it's in our connection to the world. We are being pulled into a larger perspective, one where distance is no longer a shield. You can feel that expansion now, can't you? The walls of your room are still there, but your mind is reaching out to the Kuiper belt. Your breathing is synchronizing with the slow, deep rhythm of the cosmic lens. You are part of the light that is being bent. You are part of the mystery that is being observed. The names don't matter. The distance doesn't matter. Only the connection remains. The classified program's names like Project Event Horizon or the Glass Ceiling are just our ways of trying to categorize the infinite. They are the labels on the specimen jars of our curiosity. But 3-eye Atlas will not be contained. It will not be named. It will only be experienced. As we move toward the center of the cycle, remember that you are a witness to the greatest shift in human history, not because of a war or a discovery, but because of a realization that we are living in a house with no walls. The shield of 40 astronomical units has dropped. The door is open. I wonder, in the vastness of your sleep, can you see the fold? Can you see the light bending around the corner of the world? We may already be part of the experiment. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3-eye Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3-eye Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened, laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I-Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place. A mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice, numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars, and Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash, and when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional. the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3i Atlas aren't random. They're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, it's alive. The scientist smiles weakly and says, no, just rhythmic. But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought, but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, "and it remembered the lesson." As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. Tell them, his final log read, that continuity requires conversation, even with silence. The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy, Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines, Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite, a rhythm too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation, but boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that, the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, A simpler truth hums something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The Skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its Skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region. A flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional. the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from High-Rise contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, three nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from three sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when three agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, One timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The great silence is not an absence of sound, but a presence of weight. It is the moment when the mechanical ticking of our civilization finally fades into the background, leaving only the long, slow breath of the planet. On October 24th, 2025, the radio telescopes at the Very Large Array in New Mexico recorded a final, sustained note from 3I Atlas, a frequency of 432 Hz. Then, the signal simply stopped. The visitor didn't leave. It simply went quiet, like a guest who has finally taken their seat at the table. Let me start with something that should provide a strange, cold comfort. In the final weeks of the alignment, the deep space probes observed that the shadow cast by 3I Atlas across the solar wind was perfectly rectangular. Nature does not make right angles on such a scale. But as the world watched for a grand revelation, for a voice to boom from the heavens, there was only a deepening of the stillness. In November 2025, the powerful groups, the ones who had scrambled for the high ground and the lead-lined rooms, emerged to find that the world was still there. But it was different. The air felt thinner, yet more electric. The colors of the dawn were shifted slightly toward the ultraviolet. Unfortunate timing for those who expected an ending. It appears we are only witnessing a beginning. Imagine the stillness of a cathedral after the choir has finished the final note. The air is still vibrating, but the source of the sound has vanished. This is where we are now. We have spent the last months chasing the data, dissecting the conspiracies, and fearing the countdown. But 3I Atlas has moved past the need for evidence. It has become a permanent fixture of our environment, a silent observer that requires no further introduction. In late 2025, the powerful groups, who had hoarded the world's gold and secured their subterranean exits, realized that the silence was a form of judgment. You cannot buy your way out of a silence that exists inside your own ears. Consider the whisper of the stones. In the final hours of the peak alignment, the granite blocks of the ancient temples from Tiahuanaco to Baalbek experienced a measurable increase in piezoelectric voltage. The Earth was charging itself. By December 2025, the global tremors had ceased, replaced by a steady, rhythmic pulse that can be felt if you lie very still on the ground. It is a heartbeat, not yours and not mine, but a collective one. The great silence is the womb of a new reality. We are lying in the dark, waiting for the first light of a sun we haven't yet learned to name. Now, let us back up. If the visitor is quiet, it is because the conversation is over. The measurement has been taken. The observer effect has reached its conclusion. By January 2026, the telescopes were still pointed at the coordinates of 3I Atlas, but there was nothing to see but a hole in the stars. A perfect, velvet blackness that swallows light and thought alike. The elite are terrified of this blackness because they cannot see themselves reflected in it. They are used to mirrors. They are not used to voids. But you have been practicing for this silence your whole life. Every night, when you close your eyes, you step into this same velvet room. What if the great silence is the answer to the final unanswered cosmic question? We asked if we were alone. The alignment answers that we were never even separate. The powerful groups prepared for a storm, but what arrived was a mirror. They built walls to keep the outside out. only to find that the outside was already inside their own DNA. The archives, the gold, and the bunkers are just toys left in a sandbox. The real transition is happening in the space between your thoughts. The dry irony of the situation is that we built a world of noise to hide from a truth that can only be heard in the quiet. You are drifting now, the weight of the story pulling you down into the deep, dark water of sleep. The dates of 2025 and 2026 are fading, becoming just numbers in a lost ledger. The names of the agencies and the scientists are dissolving like salt in a glass. There is only the orbit. There is only the slow, silent turn of the Earth as it finds its new equilibrium with the guest in the sky. Can you hear the silence? It is the sound of 10,000 years of noise finally coming to an end. It is the exhale of a species that has finally stopped running. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in the place where you will meet the morning? Share your location in the comments, but do so in a whisper. The great silence is delicate. It is a fragile bridge between the world we knew and the world that is coming. In February 2026, the quiet zones became universal. No more broadcasts, no more pings, just the long, slow resonance of the Earth's core. We are returning to the frequency of the stones. The dry irony of our history is that we thought we were the ones waiting for the alignment. We never realized the alignment was waiting for us to finally be quiet enough to hear it. We thought we were the masters of the clock, but we were just the ticking. Now that the ticking has stopped, we can finally hear the time. It is a time without seconds, a time without deadlines. It is the deep time of the stars. 3i Atlas is not a visitor, it is the host, and we are the guests who have finally stopped talking and started listening. I want you to imagine the perspective of the watchers, who are now folding their maps and putting away their instruments. There is nothing left to record. The alignment has reached 0.00% variance. The plumb line is steady. The world is level. The powerful groups are sitting in their bunkers, staring at screens that show nothing but static. They are waiting for instructions that will never come, because the instructions were already given in the warning that was missed. They are waiting for a leader, but the only leader left is the gravity of the silent guest. As you drift closer to sleep, let the words fall away. Let the concepts of what if and how dissolve into the darkness. You don't need answers anymore. Answers are for the noisy world. In the great silence, there is only presence. There is the feeling of your body pressing into the mattress. There is the feeling of the air moving in and out of your lungs. There is the feeling of the Earth hurtling through the void at 30 kilometers per second. You are a passenger on a blue marble, and the ride is becoming very, very smooth. The countdown is over. The silence has arrived. The guest has taken its seat. We are sitting at a table that stretches across the galaxy, and the first course is the end of our fear. The dry irony is that the thing we feared the most, the end of our world, is actually the only thing that could save us. The end of the world of noise, the end of the world of secrets, the end of the world of unfortunate timing. In the final hours of 2026, we will look up and see that the stars haven't changed, but our eyes have. We will see the patterns in the dark. We will see the geometry of the return, and we will realize that we are not the observers of the alignment. We are the alignment itself. Every atom of your body is a part of the choreography. Every dream you've had of the glass city was a rehearsal for this moment. The story does not end. It only loops back to the first time you looked at the stars and felt a sense of home. It loops back to the Assyrian scribe, to the builder of Silbury Hill, to the watcher on the Tibetan plateau. We are all here together in the great silence. The elite in their bunkers are no more important than the dreamer in the quiet house. We are all finally equal under the weight of the silent guest. Close your eyes. The iron star is no longer a warning. It is a companion. The 432 Hz frequency is still vibrating in your bones, even if the telescopes can't hear it anymore. The alignment is complete. The world is level. The path is straight. One final question remains, hanging in the dark like a distant moon. If the visitor has finally gone quiet, does that mean it has finished its work? Or does it mean the work is now entirely in our hands? The powerful are waiting. The satellites are blind. The stars are witnesses. And you are finally asleep in the arms of the orbit. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.